Hi, my name is Shemini Eight, and we are in the 26th portion of the yearly cycle. The name of this portion is Shemini, that means eighth. The numerical value for the divine and most holy name is Yud He Vav He, is 26. The Torah was given on Mount Sinai on the 26th generation of mankind. There are 10 generations from Adam to Noah. There's 10 generations from Noah to Abraham, and there's 6 generations from Abraham to Moses. We read in Deuteronomy 6:4 that says that our God is Echad, He is one. And it also carries other associated ideas with the number 4, because that name appears with 4 letters, Yud, He, Vav, He, which denotes dominion, authority, fullness, the giving of the Torah, and the Holy Spirit. All that is part of the day 4 of creation. The mankind was created in the image of God, which would be 26, right? As I've said before. Now, not coincidentally, the Bible begins to describe the creation of mankind in the 26th verse of the Torah, which is also true in the English Bibles. On Genesis 1:26 says, "Let us make man in our image according to our likeness, and let them roll over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the sky, and over the cattle, and over the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth." So that is just a little, I like to use numbers to memorize things and to remember things. So that is for that purpose. And now there are 3 chapters in this portion, chapter 9, 10, and 11. In chapter 9, we're going to see that we're going to talk about the sacrifices of Aaron and his sons. On chapter 10, it talks about the incident of the sons of Aaron that happened in the tabernacle. And then on chapter 11, it talks about the foods, what we can eat, and it's not food. So let's start with chapter 9. Chapter 9 starts by telling us that Aaron needed to take for himself a calf and a bull for a sin offering, or remember we talked about that the sin offering in Hebrew is chatat. This is the one that reminds us that of the sin of disobedience, of eating from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. That is a kind of lack of respect. God said, don't do this. This is my house. Don't eat this. And they did. So that sin offering represents that. It's an offering that has to do with respect. I have crossed a line that you have set. So that one went, well, I'll get into that part later. Then only Aaron and his sons could eat from this offering. And he also said that he needed to take a ram for a burnt offering or an olah offering. So he had two offerings, a sin offering and a burnt offering or an olah offering, which is the offering that goes completely up. It just burns and nobody eats it. Then you shall speak to the sons of Israel. So that was for Aaron. Then for all the sons of Israel to take a male goat as a sin offering, a calf and a lamb, both of 1 year old without defect as a burnt offering, then an ox and a ram for a peace offering and to sacrifice before the Lord, and the grain offering mixed with oil. For today the Lord will appear to you. So they took what Moses had commanded to the front of the tent of meeting, and the whole congregation came near and stood before the Lord. And Moses said, "This is the thing which the Lord has commanded to you to do, so that the glory of the Lord may appear to you." Now, for the sons of Israel, they had to bring the same two offerings, the sin offerings and the burnt offering, plus the peace offering and the grain offering. So that for all the sons of Israel, there were 4 offerings, so that the glory of the Father will appear to them. And remember, when we talked about that, they placed the offering on the altar and they didn't set any fire on it, but the fire came from God. That is what the glory of the Lord will appear to you means, that he would send fire to burn the offering. And that would be, he has accepted the offering, right? So we had something really interesting. I just want to share this with you that happened last Thursday. I was happened to me while I was driving. I was going outside the city to another city, and on my way back, I am thinking about this, and I just had this sense, like God said, "You are not understanding the sacrifices," and I really didn't know what that meant, but he just said, I've said, I'm sorry, I don't understand what that means. And all I heard him say again was, you are not understanding how the sacrifices are bringing us together, are bringing you to get closer to me. So I came home and I was pondering on that during the whole trip. And I mentioned it to my husband, and he said, he was just saying that to me. I was reading the portion, and when I read about placing the liver and the fat and the kidneys, I thought that's interesting. Then the hide and the flesh was actually burned outside the camp. So that I just love when he does that. He'll speak to both of us separately. So when we come together and share with one another what he's saying the same thing. So at that point, I started to really dig into what does that mean? So we have heard many times that we have to put to death the flesh, and that that it is our flesh, the one that really hinders us. And in a way it is, because it's that part of the animal, it's that part that we have in common with the animal world that really doesn't think. It just wants things and will bite to get it. And it is a very selfish, self-centered part of us that that needs to yield to the nature of God that it's in us. So as I was thinking about that, then I wanted to know, what is it exactly? He's not really after our flesh. He's not really after our skin, because that needed to be burned outside. So that means that there is something else that he's after. Let's look into that. Let's read what it says. It says in Leviticus 9:10, the fat and the kidneys and the lobe of the liver of the sin offering, he then offered up in smoke on the altar, just as the Lord had commanded Moses. So that's what God said. This is what you're going to put on the altar. The flesh and the hide, however, he burned with fire outside the camp. So we can see that he wants to burn and cleanse what is toxic, our toxic emotions, what hinders our closeness. He showed the same thing to my husband when I was telling him what he was showing me. And this 3 parts, we looked it up, and it says the fat is really, when you understand how the fat works in our body, the fat is what stores any toxicity. God created our bodies in a way that when we eat something that is not food, it's a chemical, it's something that is not food. It didn't come from the ground. It came from a laboratory. It was man-made. That, because the body doesn't know what to do with it, it just creates fat and it covers it to protect us from it because it doesn't understand what it is. So when you think about it, that fat is storing toxicity. Then you have toxins. Then you have the kidneys is where fear is stored. When we are fearful, it's stored in your kidney. Also, anger is stored in the liver. Therefore, our Father's desires is for us to live abundant life, right? And because Adam and Eve's disobedience, the seed of all humanity was in them. All humanity comes from them. We are all following the journey of growth that they started, and we are all learning to process this toxins and fear and anger. We know that fear was the first negative emotion that Adam and Eve had the moment that they sinned. And the whole purpose is to overcome. From the beginning of the scriptures all the way to Revelation, it's the message to all the congregations there is he who overcomes, right? It's repeated in all 7 of them. So we know that we all have an individual journey, but also like they all had to bring their own offering. But for all the children of Israel, they had those 4 offerings that was done for all of them. And that is as a community. So that shows us that we do have an individual journey, but we also do that journey in community. The pilgrimage, every time that the 3 feasts were in Jerusalem, people had to come and remember 3 as the number of resurrection, right? So he is always bringing us to that place of cleansing us. He who started a good work in us will complete it. So it's a process that is constantly happening, is cyclical. Every year he asks us again and again. He wants that resurrection in us. There is something in us. And think about it. It's not resurrection of like just dying and being alive, because we don't die and resurrect all the time. We will die once and for all, and then we will resurrect when for that final judgment, when he comes back for us. So, our Messiah. So what is this resurrection that it's happening? If you think about it, it has many meanings. One of them is that he created us all in his image. And there is, it says there's only one foundation that has been laid, and that is Messiah in all of us, right? We are created in his image. It says also in Ephesians 3:14 that I bow my knees before the Father, says Paul, from whom every name on heaven and on earth derives from. So our names derive from him. Our name is like his fingerprint in each single one of us. That's why we're all unique. And when we think about that way, then we know that there is a part of us that he created that has been over that foundation, that has been, we have the epigenetics that is above the genetics, the culture, the whatever our parents are going through, our grandparents, whoever raised us. So we have a lot of things that have been kind of like piled up on us. And there is a resurrection in a way that those layers are being peeled off from us. And that true self, it's coming out, is kind of resurrecting. It needs to be, and then we cover it and we mar it and tainted with many things, and then that's why that cyclical process has to keep happening until he peels that onion and all those layers, and finally the true resurrection will happen when we will all see each other just the way he created us. And the reason why we all have to go to Jerusalem, and it's kind of like when they came out of Egypt, right? They came out in throes. It was all of them together. He didn't take them one by one or a group this time, and then the next week another group. No, he got them all out. So there is that sense of community, that sense of we're working this out together. When they were in the desert, it was the same thing. Because we get tired, we get hungry, we get dizzy, we may get ill. There is something that is happening in our lives, and we need each other. We just can't make it by ourselves. So that is actually in Venezuela, where I'm from, there is a saying that says, today for you, tomorrow for me. That means we're always doing things for each other. Don't think that because today I'm doing something for you, I'll never need anything, because I will have a moment where I'm going to need you. And that's why that's where it comes from. So I looked up that word for one another. And in Greek, that means mutually, reciprocally. That means I do for you, you do for me. It is something that has happened it's a two-way street. It's not a one-way street. Well, that phrase appears in Greek in the New Testament or the Brit Hadashah 100 times. And in 59 of those, it is about specific commands teaching us how to treat each other and how not to treat each other. So, you know me with numbers. So what is 59? 59 is you add 5 and 9, you get 14. And if you add 1 and 4, you get 5. I always like to bring it down to the least denominator. And 5 is the number of grace. So he wants us to treat each other with grace, with mercy, with compassion, just like he is. So if you think about that, then those relating to one another means that toxicity, that those toxins that are being burned on the altar. Oops, sorry. Then that fear, the kidneys, that fear, it's going to have an action. When I'm afraid, I react in a certain way. And like Adam and Eve at the beginning, when they were afraid, they hid. Some people flight. Some people fight. Some people freeze. They don't know what to do. Some people fawn. They'll just do whatever anybody wants so that they don't ruffle anybody's feathers. So that fear will not just affect me. It's going to affect those around me. That anger, that liver that is put on the altar also is going to affect others. I don't just get angry within myself. That does happen. That's where it starts, but usually comes out. Either I hold it in and one day it explodes, or it explodes the first, as soon as I have it. So those are the one another. How are we dealing with those things? What are we putting on the altar? Are we really putting it on the altar? Do we really want to get rid of it? And do we really are making, it's not just, okay, great, I'll just kill this animal, put it over there and let's get it over with. No, this means I have to work at it. If I did this, I don't, unless I do have a lot of money and I don't care, that is going to affect me financially too. So there is a responsibility. There is something that I have to say, can I continue to do this and never change? You think that just by putting the animal on the altar, then all of a sudden that is going to take care of it and I won't have any more fear, any more anger, and any more toxins in my body? That's not how it works. I have to stop eating all the things that are not good for me. I have to stop put it inside my body and all my body. Our largest organ is our skin. And we put a lot of creams and things on our skin that are toxic, and our body's absorbing that. So it's not just changing the way I act, the way I even going to places where I know it's going to be toxic for me. Working in places that are going to be toxic for me. There's so many things that toxin would encompass. It's not just what comes in your body, what goes over your body that you breathe from others, etc. And then also, what am I doing so that I am less fearful? We know that perfect love casts out fear. So am I growing in his love? Am I closer to him? Because the sacrifices were to get closer to him. So the closer I get to him, the more he is an all-consuming fire. He will consume those things that are hindering that intimacy, that relationship between the two of us. So am I staying close to the Father so all those things burned and no longer hinder not just our relationship, our vertical relationship, but our horizontal between one another? And then the same thing with anger. Am I finding ways to avoid that? Am I thinking? Am I waiting? Am I being patient? Am I taking deep breaths? Am I stepping out if I'm going to, before I lash out and I say what I shouldn't say or do what I shouldn't do? Am I taking a walk? I need to take a time out here. Just time out. I need to take a walk. I need to breathe. Just give me a few seconds. Let me work this within myself. So those are things that we would do if we're being responsible. We have to work at it. We don't get, there is no baby that is born automatically angry. Something works that in him, and that takes time. And then when the amount of time that took for him to get there is going to be the amount of time that it's going to take for him to revert to that. So we are, one of the things that it is important for us to remember is that the tree of knowledge of good and evil was created by our Father. And our Father created something that doesn't affect him. There is no darkness in him. There is no lack of control. We know that the Spirit of God is love, kindness, peace, joy, gentleness, steadfastness, temperance, self-control. So we know that he is all of that. And when we are walking in his ways, when we are closer to him, when we are allowing his Spirit to flow through us. But when we don't, we have this natural flesh that is quick to get what it wants. That if it's hungry wants to eat, if it's thirsty wants to drink, it will always cater to its own needs, because that's part of our survival mode. If we don't have that, we die. Of course we need to eat when we're hungry. Of course we need to drink when we're thirsty. There is nothing wrong with that. What is wrong with that is that I'll take the glass from you and drink your water because I want it. That is what's wrong. Not that I'm thirsty and there's water for me to drink. So those are the things that we have to work with one another. And that is how those, the fruit of the Spirit is developed in us. So with that said, when we think about being in the image of God, we need to become more and more like him, in which things that are evil, things that are not, that are in darkness. Remember, darkness and light existed before he even created us. So there was darkness on the surface of the waters. and he separated the light out of the darkness. And then eventually he created us. So we have to remember that there was always here darkness, and he was never bent out of shape because of it. He created everything. So if we have to become more and more like him, then that means that we have to become more and more that self-control. He didn't give us a spirit of fear, but of power, sound mind, and self-control. So that means that if my mind is sound, my mind is the mind of Messiah, then I am taking every thought captive to the obedience of him. And everything is becoming one, is that echad that I mentioned before. So that is part of this process. We are working on that, how to get rid of fear, have self-control over that anger, and we laugh in the face of our adversity, says Proverbs 31, right? So that means that it doesn't face us. That is the process of becoming more and more like him. So one of the things that we see in Adam and Eve, like when fear came, we saw him, they hid. So we saw flight in them, right? We saw fight in Cain. He killed his brother. And we have seen freeze and fawn in other different people on scripture. And if we've seen it in ourselves and we've seen it in loved ones, it is a cyclical thing. So we all have to work on that. One of the things that it's important about this is that we need to start taking responsibility. What did Adam and Eve do as soon as they were told? Did you eat what I told you not to eat? So one blamed the other. Adam blamed Eve. Eve blamed the serpent. And we're always blaming someone. And you probably have heard, I've said it myself, oh, the enemy's doing this. I'm under attack. All these things that we say very often in a way that it's always putting the blame on somebody else or on something else and not ourselves. I know that many times, just like Job, you may be attacked. The enemy is working against you, but you have to remember that he cannot do anything to us unless the Father allows it. So we have to keep our mind on the Father, not on the enemy, not on our surroundings, not on each other. Our eyes always have to be on him. And if he allows it, there's something he's doing, whether it is working on the other person that is attacking us, and he's going to strengthen us and protect us so that we are able to overcome, or he's working on us. He was working on Job. Job said, I knew of you, but now my eyes have seen you. So what he went through made him actually experience God in a way that he had never experienced him before. So we always are learning. Our Father is not capricious. He is not cruel, and he doesn't do things just for the sake of, let's see what happens. Never. So we have to remember that. The enemy cannot touch us unless the Father allows it. So it's hard, it's easier to say, well, the enemy did this, it's the enemy's fault, and not address it where it's coming from, because nobody wants to make God the bad guy, right? Well, he isn't. That's the thing. We have to change our glasses. We have to change the way we see things so that when those words come out of our mouth are more in line with what God says and not what we think it should be, because I should never be attacked. I should never be hurt. I should always have everything I ever want, and nothing should go against my will. Well, I'm sorry. That is not reality. That is not how we grow. It's not how I grow. What did he say? Woman is the suitable helper. Well, it said Kenetgo means the helper against. So yes, we have this Holy Spirit is there to guide us and to teach us and to train us, but he does it by opposing us many, many times, because I want to go that way and the Spirit says, no, let me bring you, it's this way. And I want to go that way, and I want to go that way, and I don't want that way. I want to go any other way except the way that I'm supposed to. So we have to remember that he is omnipotent. He is, which means all powerful, omniscient, all knowing, and all omnipresent. He's everywhere all the time. Those are three things that the enemy is not. There is no demon, there is no Satan, there is no Antichrist, there is no demonic presence that is all three. None of it, not even one of them. So we have to keep that in mind. We have to keep our eyes on the creator of all things, good and evil. And he created evil because he created the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So we have to keep that in mind. I'm sorry to stress it so much, but I just hear it over and over. And everything in me says, no, we keep our eyes on our Father. How did Yeshua teach the disciples to pray? This is the way he said, our Father. We pray in community. Our Father, you are in heaven. Hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come on this earth, which means I'm made out of earth. So on this earth, in every single one of us earthen vessels, as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread. Provide for us. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Do not lead us into temptation. Who led Yeshua into the desert? The Holy Spirit. So, and he was there to be tempted. So if there is something that we don't want, ask the Father. He is the one we need to ask to. Do not lead us into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. So he is the one who delivers us from the evil one. And he does tell us in his prayer to ask for that. There is nothing wrong for asking that. But we don't address the enemy like he is our equal, because he isn't. And we don't address, we don't live in this realm where everything is happening to me and for me. No, there is something you're doing, and I'm going to learn from this. I'm going to grow from this. I'm your child. We have to come from that perspective. You're my Father. I'm your child. You own everything. You rule over everything. So that is the way we live this life. And that's what makes us different from the world, because the world looks at each other, looks at themselves, and they're constantly in this comparing one another, seeing if I'm better than, in competition. And it's like animals just biting and trying to be the first one to get everywhere. So I'll let go that one. The important thing, like I said, is I put my hands. I'm the one who brings the animal. I'm the one who has to put my hand over the head of the animal. I'm the one who slits the throat of that animal. I'm the one who cuts up the animal and puts the liver and the kidney and the fat on the altar. I'm the one, not anybody. I don't give it to somebody to do it for me. And that is what he is doing year after year, sacrifice after sacrifice, is, would you take responsibility? Would you not pass the same baton that Adam and Eve started? Would you stop that? Would we say, here's where it stops. I will take responsibility. That is what he's asking. Would you do that and put those things that I'm asking you? God came up with that. It wasn't Aaron and it wasn't Moses. It says, as God commanded. Would you put that on the altar? Would you treat each other without anger, without fear, so you're not hurting constantly one another? Would you acknowledge that I am the one who rules everything and stop giving the enemy more credit that you give me? That day will be we'll see a difference. And we see this chapter 9 ends by him saying, and Aaron lifted up his hands toward the people and blessed them. That is what we're supposed to do. Our hands are supposed to be for blessing others, not for hitting others, not for hurting others. And he stepped down after making the sin offering, the burnt offering, and the peace offering. And Moses and Aaron went into the tent of meeting. When they came out and blessed the people, the glory of the Lord appeared to all the people. So they all saw it, right? Then fire went out from the presence of the Lord and consumed the burnt offering and the portions of the fat on the altar. And when all the people saw it, they shouted and fell face down in worship. So that is what he's asking. Can you do that? If you're responsible, if you do what I've asked you to do, my fire will consume your offering. And when you all see it, then you know that I'm in your presence. I'm there with you, and there will be no other response but to worship. And oh my goodness, it's been an hour. So I have not covered chapter 10 and 11. So I'm going to end it here, and I'm going to do another recording so that it will be easier for me to upload